Dr. Emily Foster rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the monitor in front of her. Something was wrong with the data from the Mauna Kea Observatory's main telescope. At first, she thought it was a simple equipment malfunction, but after triple-checking everything, her heart began to race. "Rob," she called out, her voice echoing through the quiet control room. "Can you come look at this?" Dr. Robert Hayes walked over, coffee cup in hand. He was a tall man with graying hair who had spent 20 years studying the stars. "What's up, Em?" "The stars in Sector 7. She pointed to her screen. "They're gone." Rob leaned in closer, nearly spilling his coffee. "That's impossible. We just mapped that sector last week." He set down his cup and started typing commands into the computer. "Maybe it's just cloud cover. On a clear night. And look at the readings." Emily pulled up another window. "It's not that we can't see them. They're just not there anymore." Over the next few hours, they watched in horror as more stars began to vanish. It wasn't like watching lights go out one by one. The stars simply ceased to exist, leaving behind perfect patches of nothing. Not darkness, but an absence that hurt their eyes to look at. By morning, news started coming in from other observatories around the world. The phenomenon wasn't limited to their view of the sky. Whatever was happening, it was real, and it was spreading. Emily spent the next 3 days barely sleeping, analyzing data, and coordinating with scientists worldwide. The first signs of panic began when people started noticing the changes with their naked eyes. Familiar constellations were disappearing, leaving the night sky looking wrong in a way that triggered something primitive in human minds. "We're looking at a 30% reduction in visible stars," Emily explained during an emergency video conference with NASA and other space agencies. Her voice was hoarse from too much coffee and too little sleep. "The rate is accelerating." "Any pattern to the disappearances?" asked one of the NASA scientists. "Yes," Robert jumped in, sharing his screen. "It's moving like a wave through space, heading straight for our solar system. At the current rate," he paused, double-checking his calculations, "we have maybe 2 months before it reaches us." The first satellite failures began a week later. Global communications started becoming unstable as the wave of nothingness affected the upper atmosphere. The public was starting to panic, but the true horror hadn't yet begun. It was Emily who first recorded them, the whispers in the static. Using the observatory's radio telescopes, she picked up patterns in the noise coming from the empty regions of space. When she ran them through audio processing, what she heard made her blood run cold. The patterns weren't random. They were words in a language that shouldn't have been possible to speak. The few seconds she managed to record and translate seemed to be counting, not numbers, but concepts. Like something was counting down the lights in the universe. During an emergency meeting with military officials, Emily played the recording. The room fell silent as the processed audio filled the air with its impossible sounds. "Whatever this is," she explained, pointing to her data, "it's not just destroying stars. It's eating light itself. And it's aware." The military leaders exchanged worried looks. General Clark, a stern-faced woman with short gray hair, spoke first. "What are our options?" "We need to understand what we're dealing with," Emily said. "This isn't a natural phenomenon. The pattern is too deliberate. Something out there is consuming stars, and it's doing it systematically." Robert added, "The good news, if you can call it that, is that it seems to follow rules. It moves at a consistent speed, follows a clear pattern. That means we might be able to find a way to fight it." As if in response to his words, all the lights in the building flickered. Everyone looked up instinctively, and through the windows, they could see the sun seeming to dim for just a moment. "How long?" General Clark asked, her voice tight with concern. Emily took a deep breath. "If it maintains its current speed, 6 weeks until it reaches our solar system. After that." She let the sentence hang. The meeting ended with the creation of a new task force. As Emily walked back to her lab, she looked up at the partially darkened sky. The familiar constellation she had grown up with, the ones she had dedicated her life to studying, were now half gone. In their place was something worse than darkness, an absence that seemed to wash them back. She knew, deep in her bones, that humanity was facing something that had broken the fundamental rules of the universe itself, and somehow they needed to find a way to fight back. The last working satellite fell from the sky like a dying firefly. Commander David Wells watched it burn up in the atmosphere from the deck of the U.S. Reagan. The aircraft carrier systems were running on backup power, like most military vessels now. The darkness wasn't just taking the stars, it was eating away at everything that made modern life possible. Another communications blackout, "Sir," reported Lieutenant Amy Garcia. She stood at attention, trying to hide her fear. "We've lost contact with the Pacific Fleet." David nodded, his face grim in the dim emergency lighting. "How long until the backup generators fail?" 3 days, maybe 4 if we're careful." Across the world, cities were going dark one by one. The sun still shone, but it was weaker every day, like an old bulb slowly burning out. Scientists said the darkness was getting closer, wrapping around their solar system like a hungry snake. At the Berkeley Physics Lab, Dr. Lisa Martinez hadn't slept in days. Her team was working on understanding what they now call the entity, the thing that was eating the stars. Their lab was one of the few still running, powered by experimental fusion reactors. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to a complex diagram on her tablet. The few remaining working computers in the lab hummed behind her. "It's not just consuming light. It's consuming the very laws that make light possible." Her assistant, Paul Reed, leaned in closer. "How is that even possible?" "Because it's not from our universe," Lisa explained. "Think of it like a hungry animal that got into our reality from somewhere else, somewhere where the rules are different." The first mass panic started when the streetlights stopped working in major cities. No amount of repairs could make them turn on again. It was as if the very concept of artificial light was being erased from reality. Commander Wells received the news while at sea. Cities were erupting in chaos as people fought over basic supplies. The darkness brought with it a kind of primal fear that turned ordinary people desperate. "We need to maintain order," he told his crew. "We're one of the few military forces still able to operate. We'll start with the coastal cities, help local authorities where we can." In her lab, Lisa made a breakthrough that changed everything. She was studying an old light bulb that had stopped working when she noticed something strange. The glass was still hot, but not from electricity. "It's fighting back," she whispered. Then louder, "It's fighting back." She ran tests on everything that used to produce light. Old lamps, phone screens, even matches. They were all giving off a tiny amount of heat, like they were trying to remember how to shine. "The laws of physics in our universe," she explained to a room full of military and science leaders. "They're not just rules. They're like antibodies. Our reality is trying to fight this infection." David Wells was there, having sailed his carrier to San Francisco to help coordinate the West Coast response. "Can we help it fight?" he asked. Lisa nodded slowly. "Maybe. We need to understand how this entity thinks. It's not just mindless. It's following a pattern. And patterns can be predicted and countered." That's when the first reports came in from Japan. A group of scientists there had managed to create a new kind of light. It wasn't normal light. It was something different, something the darkness couldn't eat. "It's quantum entangled," Lisa explained, reading the report. "They'd found a way to make light that exists in 2 places at once. The entity can't consume it because it can't grab both ends at the same time." For the first time in weeks, there was hope. It wasn't much, just a few small lights that still worked. But it was proof that they could fight back. Commander Wells looked out over the darkening bay. The Golden Gate Bridge was barely visible now. Its red color faded to a dull gray. But on his ship's deck, a single new light shone, one of the quantum lights from Japan. "How long until we can make more?" he asked Lisa. A few weeks to set up production. But that's not the real problem. She pointed up at the dim sun. We need to figure out how to protect our star. Because if we lose the sun, she didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what that meant. The quantum lights were just the beginning. They needed to find a way to fight back on a cosmic scale, or humanity would face something worse than extinction. They would face an eternal darkness that hungered. David touched the quantum light gently. It felt warm, almost alive. "Then we better work fast," he said, "because I have a feeling the darkness isn't going to wait for us to be ready." Kate Wilson stood in the new Global Defense Center, watching dozens of screens showing the world's remaining active cities. The bunker, buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, was humanity's last command center. Built in just 3 weeks, it ran entirely on the new quantum lights. "Status report," she called out to her team. As the former head of NASA's crisis management, she had been chosen to lead Earth's defense efforts. "Tokyo's artificial sun is online," reported Steve Baker, her operations chief. "That's 3 working now, counting London and Dubai." The artificial suns were massive spheres of quantum light, each one keeping a major city safe from the creeping darkness. They weren't pretty, just giant balls of twisted light that hurt to look at. But they worked. In his lab at MIT, Dr. Brian Cooper had made an even bigger discovery. He was studying a piece of the darkness itself, caught in a special container lined with quantum lights. "Watch this," he told his team. He placed his hand near the container, and the darkness moved away. Not much, but enough to see. "It's afraid of us. Not our technology. Us." The discovery spread quickly through the remaining communication channels. Something about human consciousness made the darkness uncomfortable. It wasn't much, but it was a weakness they could use. "Everyone to the main hall," Cave announced over the base's speakers. "Dr. Cooper is here with news we all need to hear." Scientists, military leaders, and government officials gathered in the large underground room. Brian Cooper stood at the front, looking tired but excited. "We've always thought light was just energy," he began. "But it's more. It's a fundamental part of consciousness itself. And humans," he paused, bringing up an image on the screen behind him. It showed a brain scan next to a picture of a star. The patterns were almost identical. "Humans can generate their own kind of light," he continued. "Not with technology, but with our minds. We found it in ancient texts, myths about inner light or spiritual energy. They weren't just stories. They were instructions." Kate stepped forward. "How do we use this?" "We already are," Brian explained. "Those artificial suns, they're working better than they should because of the people around them. Human consciousness is amplifying them. And if we can train people to do this on purpose." The next few days were a blur of activity. Training centers were set up in every protected city. People learned to focus their minds, to push back against the darkness with their thoughts. The first major victory came in Paris. The city's power had failed, its quantum lights dying. But as the darkness crept in, the people fought back. Thousands of citizens, standing in the streets, their minds joined in desperate defiance. The darkness retreated. "It's working," Kate told the emergency council. "But we need more. The entity is still coming, still eating stars. These are just holding actions." That's when they got the signal. At first, they thought their equipment was malfunctioning. But it wasn't a malfunction. It was a message coming from inside the darkness itself. Dr. Lisa Martinez, working with Brian Cooper, decoded it first. "They're like us," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. "Other civilizations, trapped in the darkness. They've been fighting too, and they found a way to reach out." The message contained information, plans for better quantum lights, ways to join consciousness more effectively, and most importantly, a way to fight back. "The entity isn't invincible," Brian explained to Kate and the council. "It's afraid of us because we can do something it can't. We can create light. Not just with technology, but with our minds, our souls if you want to call it that. And if we can teach enough people, if we can join our lights together. Kate looked at the latest satellite image of their solar system. The darkness had reached Jupiter now, its moons going dark one by one. But Earth glowed with dozens of artificial suns, each one powered by human will as much as quantum physics. "Send the call," she ordered. "Every city, every village, everyone. It's time to light up." Around the world, people gathered. In protected cities and dark towns, in bunkers and bases. They had spent weeks learning to find their inner light. Now it was time to use it. As the darkness approached Mars, humanity prepared for its first real counterattack. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to take back the stars. Kate stood in the command center, watching the preparations. "Begin Operation Daybreak," she ordered. "Let's show this thing what human light can really do." Amanda Parker had never thought of herself as special. She was just a high school teacher from Ohio. But now she stood in front of 100 people, teaching them how to light up their minds. "Close your eyes," she told them. "Think about the warmest, brightest moment of your life. Hold it in your thoughts. Now push that feeling outward." The training room lit up with a soft glow, not from the quantum lights on the ceiling, but from the people themselves. Each person shimmered with a faint light, like morning sun through fog. Amanda had discovered her gift by accident. When the darkness first came to her town, she had refused to run. Instead, she stood in her classroom, thinking about all the students she needed to protect. That's when she started to glow. "You're all doing great," she said, walking between the rows of people. "Remember, the light isn't coming from outside. It's always been inside you." At the Global Defense Center, Dr. Brian Cooper studied the readings from Amanda's class. "It's incredible," he told Kate Wilson. "Each person's inner light is different, like a fingerprint. But when they work together..." He showed her a video of yesterday's test. 1,000 people, standing in a circle, their combined light pushing back a tendril of darkness that had reached Earth's upper atmosphere. "The ancient myths were right," Brian explained. "Every culture had stories about inner light or spiritual energy. The Chinese called it qi. The Indians called it prana. They were all talking about this." Kate watched the video again. "How many people can we train in time?" "That's the good news," Brian said. "It's spreading on its own. Once someone learns to light up, they can teach others. It's like remembering something we all knew but forgot." In her training room, Amanda felt it happening. Each person who learned to shine became a teacher. The light spread from person to person, city to city. But the darkness wasn't waiting. It had reached Mars now, and the red planet was turning black. Earth's artificial suns were working harder each day to keep the shadow back. That's when they got the second message from the aliens trapped in the darkness. Lisa Martinez decoded it quickly this time. "They say we're doing it wrong," she told the emergency council. "We're trying to fight the darkness with individual lights. We need to join them together, all of them." Amanda was called to the Global Defense Center to help with the new plan. She stood nervous in front of Kate Wilson and the other leaders. "All those myths about inner light," Amanda said, "they weren't just about individual power. They were about joining lights together, like a web of souls." They tested it first with a small group. 20 people, all trained light bearers, sitting in a circle. They didn't just shine their lights. They shared them, passing them back and forth like threads of sunshine. The effect was immediate. Their combined light was more than 20 times stronger than their individual glows. It was enough to push back the darkness for a mile in every direction. "Now we scale up," Kate ordered. "Get everyone trained. Every person who can shine. Every person who can teach. We need millions ready." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Training centers ran day and night. People learned not just to shine, but to share their light, to join it with others. Amanda traveled from city to city, teaching other teachers. She noticed something strange happening. The more people learned to use their inner light, the stronger everyone's light became. "It's like we're waking up something that's always been there," she told Brian Cooper during a break between classes. Something that's been sleeping in our DNA. In the command center, Kate watched the latest scans. The darkness had consumed Mars completely now, but Earth was ready. Millions of people had learned to shine. Billions more were learning. "Tell me something good," she said to Brian as he joined her at the monitors. "The alien messages were right," he said. "When we join our lights together, we create something new. Something the darkness has never seen before. And I think," he paused, looking at the latest readings, "I think it's starting to worry about us." Amanda stood at her window that night, looking at the dim stars that remained. Tomorrow they would try the biggest joining ever. 1,000,000 people, all shining together. She touched the glass, her fingertips glowing softly. "We're coming for you," she whispered to the darkness. "And we're bringing the light back." Major John Russell stood at the front of his special unit, the First Light Warriors. Each member was chosen for their strong inner light. They wore special suits lined with quantum crystals that helped focus their power. "Today we take the fight to them," John told his team. They stood in a reinforced bunker under the Rocky Mountains. "For the first time, we're not just defending, we're attacking." The plan was dangerous but simple. Using their combined light, they would push through the darkness around Earth and try to reach the trapped alien civilizations they had contacted. "Remember your training," John said. "Stay connected. If anyone loses their light, the whole team pulls back." The launch room looked like something from a science fiction movie. Instead of a spaceship, they had built what they called a light bridge, a tunnel of pure human-made light that could cut through the darkness. Kate Wilson watched from the control room as the team got ready. "All systems check," she asked her staff. "Quantum stabilizers online," reported Steve Baker. "The light bridge is charging. Power at 80%. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood next to Kate, holding the latest alien message. "They're waiting for us," she said. 3 civilizations, all trapped in bubbles of light inside the darkness. If we can reach just one of them." The room hummed with energy as the light warriors took their positions. 20 people in a circle, their hands linked, their minds already starting to glow. John felt the familiar warmth of his inner light spreading through him. But this time it was different. As the team joined their lights together, it grew stronger than ever before. "Bridge at full power," Steve announced. "Major Russell, you have a go." The team's combined light shot upward through special quantum collectors in the ceiling. Above the facility, a beam of pure white light cut into the darkness that covered the sky. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they felt it, a response, not from the darkness, but from something inside it. "Contact," Lisa shouted, looking at her instruments. "We found one. An alien civilization, about 3 light years out. The aliens weren't what anyone expected. They weren't creatures of flesh and blood, but beings of pure light themselves. Their civilization had evolved that way, and that's why the darkness hated them so much. They want to help." Lisa translated their messages quickly. They'd been fighting the darkness for thousands of years. They know its weaknesses, but the darkness wasn't going to let this connection happen easily. The team felt it attacking their light bridge, trying to break their connection. "Hold steady," John ordered as the pressure increased. Several team members were sweating now, their faces tight with concentration. That's when they learned the truth about the darkness. It wasn't just eating light. It was running from something. Something worse than itself. "It's a refugee," Lisa explained as the alien messages poured in. "The darkness comes from a dead universe. It's trying to survive by eating the light from our universe. But it doesn't know how to create light, only consume it." John felt the alien presence touch his mind through the light bridge. In that moment, he understood what they needed to do. "We don't need to destroy it," he told Kate through his comlink. "We need to teach it." The aliens agreed. They had been trying to do the same thing for centuries. But they needed human help. Humans had something special. They could both create and share light. The mission changed right there. Instead of attacking the darkness, the light warriors tried something new. They pushed their light outward not as a weapon, but as an offering. The darkness resisted at first, but where it touched their light, something changed. It started to learn, to understand. "Look!" Someone shouted from the control room. On the main screen, they could see it happening. The darkness around their light bridge wasn't disappearing. It was changing, learning to shine. The mission lasted 6 hours. By the end, John's team was exhausted but successful. They had made contact, learned the truth, and started something new. Kate looked at the latest satellite images. A small part of the darkness near Earth was different now. Not gone, but changed. It glowed with a faint light of its own. "This is just the beginning," she told her staff. "Now we know what to do. We don't just fight the darkness. We teach it to light up." John looked at his tired team with pride. They had done more than fight today. They had started to change the very nature of their enemy. "Get some rest," he told them. "Tomorrow, we light up more of the dark." Dr. Emily Foster stood at the main control center of the combined human-alien fleet. After months of preparation, they were ready for the final push. The fleet wasn't made of metal ships. It was made of pure light, created by millions of minds working together. "All light-bearer teams report ready," Steve Baker announced. The screen showed thousands of points of light around Earth, each one a group of humans sharing their inner light. The alien civilizations had taught humanity how to make ships of pure consciousness. Now these light vessels floated in space, each one carrying hundreds of trained light-bearers. "The darkness is moving," Lisa Martinez reported from her station. "It's gathering around Saturn, like it knows we're coming." Emily remembered that first night at her observatory, when she had watched the stars disappear. Now she was about to lead humanity's greatest mission, to reach the heart of the darkness and change it forever. "Commander Wells, is your team ready?" she asked through the light comm. David Wells' voice came back clear and strong. "All ships in position. We're ready to make our run." The plan was dangerous but simple. While thousands of light-bearers held back the darkness around Earth, a smaller fleet would push through to its center. Emily had discovered where it was hiding, a spot of perfect nothing in the middle of where Saturn's rings used to be. "All ships, power up," Emily ordered. Around Earth, millions of people closed their eyes and focused their light. The combined glow was bright enough to push back the darkness for millions of miles. The attack fleet moved forward, led by David Wells. Each ship was a sphere of pure human light, strengthened by alien knowledge. Inside them, light-bearers worked together to keep the vessels strong. "First wave of darkness approaching," Lisa warned. "It's different from before, more focused." The darkness struck like a storm of black lightning, but the ships were ready. Their light didn't just push back the darkness, it changed it, just as they had learned to do. "Keep going," David encouraged his fleet. "Remember your training. Don't fight it, transform it." But the darkness fought back harder than ever. It had learned too. Where before it just ate light, now it tried to corrupt it, turn it against itself. Emily watched in horror as 3 ships went dark. "Pull them back," she ordered. But it was too late. The darkness had taken them. That's when Amanda Parker, leading the Earth Defense, had an idea. "Dr. Foster, the lost ships, their crews are still shining. I can feel them." Emily understood immediately. The darkness couldn't really destroy their light. It could only hide it. All ships, new plan. Don't avoid the darkness. Dive into it. The fleet plunged forward, directly into the thickest part of the darkness. As each ship was swallowed, its crew kept shining, creating points of light inside the darkness itself. "It's working," Lisa shouted. "The darkness, it's breaking up from the inside." But they needed more. Emily knew they had to reach the center, where the darkness was born. Her instruments showed it clearly now, a hole in space itself, leaking darkness from that dead universe. "Commander Wells, take us in," she ordered. The final push was the hardest. The closer they got to the center, the stronger the darkness became. Ship after ship was swallowed, but each one left behind its light, like stars being reborn. They were almost there when their own ship began to fail. Emily felt the darkness seeping in, trying to corrupt their light. "We need more power," David called out. Emily made her decision then. She had started this when she first saw the stars disappear. Now she would finish it. "Everyone, link to me," she ordered her crew. "I'll show you how we win." She opened her mind completely, becoming a channel for every scrap of light humanity could produce. It hurt, like being torn apart and put back together, but she didn't stop. Through her joined consciousness, she felt everything. Every human on Earth shining. Every alien ally lending strength, even the changed darkness adding its new light to theirs. With the last of her strength, she pushed all that power into the hole at the center of the darkness. Light met dark in an explosion that could be seen across the galaxy. The darkness didn't end, but it changed. Where there had been nothing, now there was something new. Not light, not dark, but a mix of both. Emily felt herself becoming part of it, her consciousness spreading out among the stars. Her last human thought was of victory, not through destruction, but through transformation. The war wasn't won with weapons, but with understanding. The darkness had learned to shine. 1 year after the final battle, Commander David Wells stood at the new Global Light Center, watching the sunrise. It wasn't the same sun he had grown up with. This one shone with a mix of old light and new, carrying within it a piece of every human who had fought in the war. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Kate Wilson joined him at the window. She had led Earth through its darkest hours, and now she led the recovery efforts. "Emily would have loved to see this," David said quietly. Dr. Foster wasn't gone. Not really. Her consciousness had become part of the new star network that now filled their galaxy. Sometimes, on quiet nights, people could feel her presence in the starlight. The world had changed in amazing ways. Humans hadn't just beaten the darkness, they had learned to work with it. Now, every child born could naturally create light. It was as normal as breathing. Amanda Parker ran the biggest teaching center in North America, showing people how to use their new abilities. Her students weren't just learning to shine. They were learning to shape light itself. "Watch this," one of her young students said, holding up his hands. Above his palms, a small galaxy of lights danced, each one connected to the others like a web of stars. The aliens who had helped them weren't strangers anymore. Their light beings lived among humans now, teaching and learning. Together, they were building something entirely new. Dr. Brian Cooper's lab had become the center for studying this new reality. "The universe isn't the same," he explained to a group of visitors. "We didn't just change the darkness. We changed the basic rules of light itself." On his screens, he showed them the new map of space. Where once there had been empty darkness between stars, now there were rivers of light. Every point where Emily and her crew had transformed the darkness had become a new kind of star. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a particular bright spot. "This used to be where Saturn was. Now it's what we call a light hub, a place where human consciousness and starlight mix together." Lisa Martinez spent her days talking with their alien allies, learning their stories. "They say we did something they thought was impossible," she told the council. "We didn't just fight the darkness. We healed it, made it part of the light." The memorial wall in the Global Light Center told the story, not just of those who had been lost, but of how they lived on in the new stars. Each name glowed softly, connected to the lights in the sky they had helped create. John Russell and his light warriors had a new mission now. They traveled the galaxy, finding pockets of old darkness and helping them transform. It wasn't a fight anymore. It was a rescue mission. "Every piece of darkness we find," John told his teams, "is another chance to create light." The biggest change was in how humans saw themselves. They weren't just creatures living under the stars anymore. They were part of the light itself. Every person could feel the connection, the web of consciousness that linked them to each other and to the stars. Kate walked through the center's garden, where new flowers bloomed that could shine in the dark. "We're getting messages from other galaxies now," she told David. "Other places where the darkness fled. They want to learn what we did." David nodded, watching a group of children playing. They were making shapes with light, their laughter adding new colors to their creations. "So we teach them," he said, "just like Emily taught us." Above them, the sky was full of stars again, but different stars. Some were the old ones, burning like they always had. Others were the new ones, made from transformed darkness, shining with human consciousness mixed in. And sometimes, if you looked very carefully, you could see patterns in the starlight. Messages from Emily Foster and others like her, written in light across the sky. They weren't gone. They had become part of something greater. As the sun rose higher, David thought about how far they had come. From watching the stars disappear to becoming part of them. From fighting the darkness to transforming it into light. "Ready for today's council meeting?" Kate asked him. "We're discussing the new star bridges." David smiled, looking at the bright sky one more time. Somewhere up there, Emily was watching. In the end, humanity hadn't just survived. They had changed the very nature of light and darkness themselves. "Ready," he said. "Let's go create some more light."